On August 27th, 2014, a YouTuber named Peter Ritchie posted a video of the largest SimCity ever created, the megacity, totaling 107,658,254 residents in the span of one very, very large map, totaling 81 regions on a 9x9 grid. Colossal in its magnitude, and honestly, a work of art unto itself, all meticulously planned and sustained by over 16,000 miles of road, 324 hydrogen power plants, and 486 waste-to-energy plants. Each subcity is divided into 144 megablocks, 48 residential, 48 commercial, and 48 industrial, all arranged into what appears to be a plus sign centered by a massive commercial district. And this city is dense. To put it into perspective, if New York City is around 11,300 people per square kilometer, then the megacity is around 7 times more dense, coming in at around 80,000 people per square kilometer. Not even including planning and testing, the video details around 6 months worth of construction poured into this vast and elaborate megacity. I wanted to figure out how to create such a huge city for myself in SimCity, but without taking out 6 months of my life, so I decided to just figure it out this weekend by reconstructing one singular tile off the grid and see if I could manage it. If you divide the total regional population of 107 million by 81 for each tile, you should come out with an average population of around 1.3 million for each tile. But there's still a lot more that goes into it. And so I got cracking by trying to follow along with Peter Ritchie's video series about how to construct a mega city. January 1st, year 0, $500,000 in the bank, and a blank slate of grassland in the background. I commenced with the city in the far corner of the region, a little square tile on the southeast edge of the map. I sketched out my blueprints for the town with roads along the edges, and began, like every good Sim City, with industry in the corner to poop out all the dirty fumes off the map edges from the power plant situated as far southeast as possible. The first grid block. Thence, roads extended north and west to guide the rest of the city's plans. Blocked. The foundation was laid. After that, I gridded out the rest of the city with major roads and avenues, crisscrossing at vital intersections like a large piece of graph paper. And then I began to zone the zones: industrial, commercial, and of course, residential. For this first experiment, I placed everything out in a diagonal checkerboard fashion, which seemed like a good idea, but unfortunately, it wasn't a good idea. Oh well. The city grew anyway. And despite my attempts to encourage growth through the placement of water pipes, the city was ultimately doomed to fail almost immediately because the dirty smog pumped into the air by factories. It was so dirty that no one moved in, and demand died out. I also realized that the entire region of this zone was too small and I'd never really get the results I wanted, so I decided to just back out of the region immediately to establish another experimental city nearby. Let's just forget that city number 1 ever happened. We have its population sitting there and breathing in the smog as proof of its results. City number 2. With mega city number 1 sitting there in the background, let's just forget about it for now, and we're going to embark on a new city with another $500,000 in the bank. Everything's reset again at January 1st, year 0. The only catch this time is that this city is going to have a slightly higher demand due to all the already established or possibly displaced population from this first city we established. I began with the second city in exactly the same way as the first city. Roads along the edges, industry beside it on the map edge, and in the corner, a factory to poop pollution out somewhere else and make it other people's problem. After all, ain't nobody got time for that. With water, power, and factories, we'd need workers to support the local economy. So I built some houses nearby for our population, as well as commercial zones nearby, but this time farther away from the smog of the factories. Also, they'd have a chance to grow, unabated by dirty pollution. The city grew, but everyone inside was an idiot. They all worked at mindless manual labor jobs in factories and never gazed upon the light of the sun. And even when I backed out into the major region of the game to establish more ties to residential developments and industries in other areas of the greater map region, all they demanded were jobs on the farm, subsisting by the lactate of the bovine. Even when I covered the entirety of the city limits and farms, no one moved in or seized any opportunities at forward career advancement or education. And so, as a result, our population remained a city of dinguses, inbred swine of the earth. Sometimes even literally. I'd messed up pretty bad, so I decided to just blow up the region. And I didn't tell you about them, but I also made 2 other cities in the area which also failed, but they were just full of farms, so you can safely ignore them. Goodbye. Okay, so if Megacities 1 and 2 didn't work, and also Megacities 3 and 4 didn't work either, then what about the next one? Starting fresh from January year 0, it's all back to the beginning once again, with $500,000 in the bank. I'd learned my lessons from the first few failures, so I started off this 3rd time with my newfound wisdom, all directed toward building the ultimate megacity. Perfect in every way. Build wide, then build tall. We started off with a nice balance of residential, commercial, and of course industrial zones, and just perhaps a few farms to support the local economy while we diversified our labor market, all to prevent the hazardous potential inbreedification of these first Sims living in the megacity. With water and power hooked up, the whole city grew and increased, supporting more farms, but this time only along the outer edge, all as I created a buffer toward the juicy interior of the city for the people to reside and do commerce with one another, making merry and experiencing gaiety, unabated by the smog of the dirty factories nearby this time. To combat the seeping in of any potential stupidity looming on the horizon, perhaps, of our agricultural culture, we established our first learning location, the elementary school, a place to prevent morons from conquering the town. This worked. Naturally, people desired to offload the daily burden of their stupid children at our school, and residential demand exploded as migrants flocked into our town to send their offspring to our public school. As we sat them in groups of children in our classrooms, they grew smarter. Naturally, as the children began to grow older in our schools, they desired a life now this time not on the farm, but instead in a factory, growing yet more demand in the macroeconomic industrial growth and expanding the way for the city to make more money, with more housing for taxpayers. So as the megacity grew from years 50 to 100, factories began to replace farms as tax revenues rose along with them, allowing the zoning of yet more residential areas for people to live in, more elementary schools to encourage them to work in the factories we just built, and gradually enough room to construct residences for the middle class and wealthy, farther away from the smog of the factories, reaping yet even greater returns on their higher income in taxes. The plan for our megacity, like with most SimCities, was to make money from the factories to pave way for a cleaner, wealthier society. Thus, by raising taxes on dirty industry to 11% and higher, we made money on them gradually and began to edge them out of our borders, allowing us to lower taxes on the residents and encourage more of them to move in, funding elementary schools and raising the bar to higher achievement of sitting in classrooms, along with the creation of a manufacturing sector which produced greater income and lesser air pollution. Not gonna lie though, this took a lot of time, 150 years so far to be a little more precise, and in that time we had no police, and we had to keep just bulldozing the oil power plants every 25 years or so because they were on the verge of a meltdown. But these were just the sacrifices that needed to be made to improve our society, like simply tolerating the rampant spread of violent and unspeakable crimes throughout the city for hundreds of years, as well as air and water pollution, just like all over the place, as well as an almost complete disregard for human life and lack of healthcare services, all as we gradually amassed a growing hoard of gold and taxpayer revenues. But you can't deny, things were getting a little bit better every year. From years 160 to 200, it's busy, busy, busy. We kept growing and gradually implemented almost every possible community ordinance to make our town more attractive to migrants, from carpool incentives to tire recycling programs and beyond. hauling in more people and more taxpayer dollars, accumulating, expanding, all the while continuing to edge out and profit from the last dregs of dirty industry with a punishing 15% tax rate as we became clean, pristine, wealthy, and perfect in every way. By the year 233, our population crested 100,000, 200,000, and growing higher with more cash in the bank. 7 million and counting. The city continued to grow, and by the year 250, we were starting to use the megacity's planned plaza configuration, combined with subway stops to encourage the commuting and upliftification of the rising towers of our growing population. This took a while again to keep growing, but by the year 350 we were fully gridded and up to 350k pop with 10 million in the bank. We continued to expand for the next 60 years, realizing the full grid of our plan and covering the whole town in developments. With taxes higher, though, and still stuck at 400k pop, we were still struggling to get our demographics maximized. How could we keep improving? Fire stations, education, gentrification, you name it. We even built a country club in the middle of town. Churches, cemeteries, a university, you name it. Every special gift that had been granted to the town for the last 350 years that we hadn't built yet. I bulldozed the oil power plants and replaced them with hydrogen power plants. I even schnizzled the schnonk. Still not good enough, but improving, 450k pop and rising. So around the year 400, with all the traditional means of civic governance proving unreliable and running out of options in the traditional toolbox for addressing the threats of crime and dirty industry still stifling the growth of our town, I turned to martial law and just blew up every dirty industry in the town. If you're dirty, you're gone. One by one, they fell to our bulldozers, and to prevent them from returning, I raised their tax rate to 20% to make way for cleaner, wealthier, high-tech industries to move in and take their place. Be gone, peasants! Taking another look at the map, though, I realized I hadn't actually set up the zones correctly, so it took a total redevelopment of the city's zones until year 405 to actually get everything set up the right way. At long last, the expansion was complete. Sure, maybe we were down 100,000 people or so, and maybe we had a negative $40,000 per month net cash flow, but, oh well, let's just ignore that and lower taxes. And although we'd lost money and people in the short term, like a business primed with startup capital, I'm happy to say that from around year 400 onward, people flocked in droves to the megacity, attracted by lower taxes, better civil services, and the start to a blossoming high-tech industrial sector. At this point in the playthrough commenced one of those most magical moments in any SimCity playthrough. That epiphany when you finally solved the equation of the perfect civic enterprise. The zones are perfect. The fire departments, the police stations, and all the services are in place, and you can just click 3 times speed and kick back as you watch the towers rise and materialize. The result of all those meticulous hours spent planning, shaping into a bustling civilization before your very eyes. And this time, that's actually what happened. The tax revenues went from deep in the red to well into the black as our population rose along with it steadily. 500,000, 600k, 700k, and 800k by around the year 500. The towers rose and the entire city leveled up. And honestly, there's no bad ending, which is odd because usually everything explodes or everyone dies at the end. But that didn't happen this time. Or did it? Well, it didn't, but to get technical, Peter Ritchie's megacity contained over 1 million people per square tile on average, and mine had only 800,000, which is still missing a lot, but keep in mind this is the first tile. From scratch, we're starting with the demand. But if you really wanted to make this region with 107 million total population, the aggregate demand from all the other regions combined would probably carry the population higher from region to region. I feel pretty satisfied. I got the map full of skyscrapers I'd always wanted, and there it is. Mega City 1. Good enough. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. I'm Ambiguous Amphibian. I hope this convinced you to try this out for yourself. And a major thanks to my patrons, dinguses who schnizzle my schnonk. Until next time.